Wonderful. Hey, everybody. Sean O'Connor here from Macabre Daily, the Paper Cuts column, the Spotlight series. And we have a special guest with us tonight, none other than Scotty Milder, who is one of the best horror literature and film. Let's be fair. I mean, it's not just literature, but Horror in the High Desert is Horror from the High Desert is easily one of the best amplifiers for horror authors out there, and that's why I want to have you on tonight.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. And I do feel like I might have made a mistake with the name of the podcast, because I didn't actually know about the movie Horror in the High Desert when I picked it, and people make that mistake all the time.
Good. Thank you for making me feel better about it. I'm like, I love this podcast, and then I can't even get the name right.
You're definitely not the first.
Scotty, it's par for the course. I did an hour with Michael Wehunt, who just released the October film Haunt, which is my favorite novel of 2025. I say the October film Hunt at least 6 times during the interview. So it's, I'm loving it.
Yeah, I'm dying to read that one, by the way. I haven't gotten to it yet. But
it's waiting for you, and it's incredible.
I've heard nothing but great things about it. Yeah.
All right, Scotty, you ready for a little This Is Your Life moment? Here we go. All right, for our viewers and our listeners out there, listen to this slacker. Scotty is a writer, a filmmaker, a podcaster, and a film educator. You've got your BA in media arts, your MFA in screenwriting. You've developed film scripts with Warner TV and Sony Pictures TV. You've directed music videos for bands in Albuquerque and Boston. You've worked with independent film producers in LA and New Mexico. Your fiction has appeared in Cosmic Horror Monthly, Dark Matter Magazine, Dark Moon Digest, as well as numerous anthologies. Your independent film, Dead Billy, is available on Amazon. Whew. You teach screenwriting and film production at Santa Fe Community College and the University of New Mexico. And of course, you host Horror from the High Desert and co-host The Weirdest Thing with Amelia Ampuero.
Yeah.
I mean... I don't even know where to start with you. Where do you find the time?
It's so I should say, on the film stuff, I've been away from film for a long time. I teach film, as you said, primarily screenwriting.
Okay.
I haven't made a movie in probably a decade. The last music video I did was in 2016. But I'm actually in the process of putting together my first short film in about a decade, and that's hopefully the prelude to a feature film that me and one of my best friends, Corey Weintraub, who's a longtime cinematographer I've been working with for a couple of decades. It's a project, a dream project we've been working on getting it off the ground. It's actually based on an idea of his, and then the short film is an idea of mine that's kind of tied to the feature film. And the short film builds off of a short story that I wrote, so we're kind of like
all of it,
bringing it all together. So
I mean, I was tracking it, and then when you got to the point where you were a triple threat and then a quadruple threat, I'm like, all right, he does everything. All right, enough already. If you say that you're going to be the lead actor in it, I'm stopped.
I'm not an actor. That is one thing I'm not. I've tried it. I took an acting class in graduate school, and I will say, for anyone who wants to be a filmmaker, probably the best thing you can do if you want to be a director is take an acting class.
That makes sense. Definitely.
I think a mistake a lot of aspiring filmmakers make, particularly people who want to be directors, is they think it's all about the camera. It's all about like knowing like lenses and things like that, and the technical stuff. but it's really about knowing story, and your main tool as a director is your actors, getting the best performance out of your actors and knowing how to talk to actors. And so take at least one acting class. That's probably the best. That's probably the best class I took in graduate school, was the acting
I would
class.
say that's fantastic advice.
But it also taught me that I'm not an actor. So.
Well, maybe not yet. Maybe that's down the road, because you've done everything else,
Also, not a musician. That I love me. I'm wearing my Cramps t-shirt, but
love it.
I played saxophone for years and learned I'm not talented. So yeah, but I do love music. So
fantastic. Well, look, do me a favor and just tell the viewers and the listeners just a little bit about how the podcast actually got started. What was the genesis? What was the idea for it?
Well, so during COVID, me and my friend Amelia, she's a local actor here in Albuquerque. We decided to start a podcast. It's the weirdest thing. Just kind of, we were both stuck at home like everyone else during the pandemic. And it's not a horror podcast. It started off as a weird history podcast, kind of. We sort of say it's kind of My Favorite Murder meets things you missed in history class. But then it's kind of evolved into like just whatever we want to talk about. Sometimes we talk about movies. Sometimes we talk about like just weird shit we found online, So we started podcasting in 2020. It was just kind of something we started for fun. Did that for a couple years. And I really I used to do college radio back in the 90s, and I like talking,
Yeah, and you're good at it.
Yeah, I think I don't know that I'm like a natural broadcaster, but I do think I have a certain, I don't know, facility for conversation, I guess.
I would agree with that 100%. I listen to I have listened to The Weirdest Thing. You see what my house is here. I gravitate more toward horror from the high desert. But what I really love is that you have the ability to really draw. It's so conversational, but I will say, exactly, being a writer yourself and an author, exactly what to talk about as far as the mechanics of their novels or short story collections. But it's never dry. It's never like, textbook material. You're conversational.
I think that was, so when I started Horror from the High Desert, because we were doing the Weirdest Thing podcast, and like I said, we cover everything from like Mothman, cryptids, movies we watched, TV shows we watched. Amelia just recently did the history of iced coffee, like whatever we want to talk about. But one thing I was sort of like chomping at the bit to do was, particularly as because I also, like I said, I kind of moved away from the filmmaking, and I really, my first love is always fiction. When I went to film school back in kind of the mid 2000s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, I always had the idea that I was going to be like a novelist first. I always wanted to be Stephen King. And then I would, the Clive Barker was kind of my model of like, he was a horror writer who sometimes made movies.
Yeah.
And I kind of let that go for a long time, and I really focused on the film stuff, got burned out on that. And so then I got back into fiction. And then as we were doing the Weirdest Thing podcast, that's when my fiction writing was really taking off. I was publishing, things like that. And I really just started getting this urge to like, I really want to focus on horror. And, Amelia, she's sort of a casual horror fan, but she's not really a horror person.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to like steer the Weirdest Thing podcast into being a horror podcast.
Yeah, all of a sudden
I wasn't going to force her into that. And I thought, this is at the same time I was starting to go to StokerCon. I was starting to meet more horror writers. I was getting a bit of tiny bit of a name for myself as a published writer.
Well, that name has grown. That's for sure.
It's growing a bit, not a big name, but a little bit of a name. And so I thought, why not? I can, I've developed the skills. I've got the little bit of a infrastructure set up in my house. I got the microphone, got the you know the server set up and everything. And I thought, why not just start another podcast?
Why not?
And start reaching out to people and see if they want to have conversations. And one of my models actually early on was Mark Maron with the WTF podcast. He obviously he started off just talking to his comedian friends. I thought, why not just start talking to my horror writer friends? And you talk about it being kind of conversational. That was my idea. Like, I don't really go in with a lot of prepared questions usually. I don't approach it like an interview.
That's what I like about it, though. It's got an organic flow.
That was always the thought.
It's not cookie cutter. Exactly.
Yeah.
Every episode is different. Every conversation is different.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I really wanted to approach it as just like a loose conversation. I read the books. I try to read as much of an author's material as I can. Obviously, you usually can't be like a total completist. And then I just go in with like a vague idea of what I want to talk about. And then I just kind of let the conversation flow where it wants to flow. And, and then I also always have the attitude of like, I really talk to authors that I know that I'm a fan of their work because I want to be a cheerleader for people,
Same. Yeah.
So, I'm here to amplify the authors and the voices and the work that I like.
Well, that's why you're here now, and that's why I wanted to amplify your voice.
Well, thanks. I appreciate
you do, because I honestly feel like you're just this beacon, this megaphone to get not just indie authors, but a lot of indie authors, but even some mainstream authors that maybe haven't really like hit that level. You do phenomenal work amplifying their voices and getting their books in readers' hands. So that's why I wanted to get you on here tonight and just say, hey, I think what you're doing is fantastic.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. And I do, obviously I do try to get a few, sort of known authors on. Some of it is, because these are authors that I like. It certainly doesn't hurt for attention for the podcast to get, a few marquee names here and there. But I do really make a concerted effort to get authors on who, maybe could use like a little extra attention. Because I feel like I'm one of those authors, like I'm not a big name. So, like I'm not necessarily chasing after all of the big name people who everyone is already reading their work, like obviously there are a few, but I'm always trying to go out of my way to like find or talk to people who maybe could use that little extra boost.
That push. Let me ask you a question. I'm curious if you encountered this as well, because when I started the Paper Cuts column for Macabre Daily, I basically made a list of like 20 authors, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna and varied, some authors that were fairly well known, most of them up and coming though, like really in the indie scene, but they were on fire. They really had their sea legs under them. And I thought, okay, these are the people, these are the authors that could really use it right now. But I figured, okay, I'm going to reach out to 20 authors and maybe I'll hear back from, I was being like a little optimistic. I'm like, maybe 8, all 20 of them said absolutely. I was so naive. I did not know when I got involved in this that authors really do have almost the entire task of pushing their work and publicizing work on their own shoulders. And I was floored.
Yeah, I actually thought it would be a lot harder than it would be because I think I had the same naivete. And I thought, some of the more indie authors I thought would be more approachable, but, even some of the bigger names are, sometimes it's like harder to find their contact information.
Yes.
So that can be a bit of a challenge. But usually it's like once I have figured out how to contact someone, they're generally pretty much like, there have only been a couple people who have been either not interested or hard to kind of
Down.
pin down. And even then it's usually just schedule is the hardest thing.
That's the thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing. I mean, you make it work, but maybe it takes a couple of emails and a couple of weeks down the road, but you finally get them. And I know that you try and get them right on the bubble of when their book is.
If I can.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and then sometimes that can be harder. And sometimes I miss it. Like sometimes someone will have something come out and then I didn't realize it, and then I try to get them on later. But usually, if I can, I'll try and schedule something when it's at the most advantageous for them.
Yeah.
I'm also trying to do a thing though where I'm getting a few people who've been on a few times to come on. I'm starting this new thing I'm calling the Horror from the High Desert Book Club that I'm only doing every so often.
Nice.
Where I'll have someone on when they're not promoting something and just be like, let's talk about a book that you love. And it's a way to sometimes introduce me to something that I maybe haven't read or haven't read in a long time. So like Tamika Thompson is coming on soon, and we're going to talk about Tananarive.
Oh, come on.
I had Rachel Leave Moulton on. We talked about Geek Love, so trying to intersperse episodes like that just for a little bit of variety.
You've turned me on to so many authors too. Funny. All right, I'll shamelessly name drop Sam Rebeline. You turned me on to Chris Panettiere, and it's funny. I was just in Beacon, New York, this past couple of days ago to see a film there, and there's Sam walking down the street with his buddy, and nice. I was with the author John Collins, and they're talking, and I'm like,
John's going to be on very soon, actually.
You're going to have so much fun with John.
Yeah,
he's a blast, and he's just an absolute sweetheart. But I mean, it's just like, pinch me. This is fantastic. Sam's going to come on down the road. We're going to talk about his work, and then we also are going to talk about the movie Cloverfield, because why not?
Yeah. No, and Sam's great. Sam's. What's interesting about Sam is like Sam and I, we met at StokerCon in Denver, and we were both it was our first StokerCon. He was really new. He had just sold Edenville, I think. It hadn't come out yet. Nobody knew who either of us were. And I feel like we both have kind of sort of bubbled up at the same time. He's kind of hit the stratosphere, and I feel like, but it's been really great kind of, even in a small way, being part of his kind of journey with just having him on the podcast. And
and yourself included, the horror community is just full of the nicest people and the warmest people. And the perception of horror to an outside person that maybe is not really familiar or doesn't like horror, it's like, ooh. When you get to know these people within the community, it couldn't be nicer.
That's been my experience.
One after the next.
And that's where, like I say, I've really been trying to like keep the podcast as like this really positive place. And like, I know we've had our controversies have popped up in the whole horror lit scene, and
it's inevitable. Yeah,
it's inevitable. And I've had a couple people, not really people that I know, just kind of random people, like when some drama will flare up, and I'm not going to talk about any specifics, but people will message me. This has only happened a few times, but I've had people message me and be like, "Oh, you should have so and so on to talk about this thing." And I'm like, "That's not what my podcast is for.
We're not.
That's not what I'm here for."
of horror. No, we don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not the TMZ of horror. I'm not going to turn the podcast into that. Like, I'm also not Mike Wallace. Like, I'm not here to like ask the quote unquote hard questions. I'm here to be right. Exactly. I know, like, Brian Keene, when he had his podcast, he was kind of got put in the position of doing that. I don't know that that was necessarily his plan for that early on, and he kind of got out of it. I think that kind of really burned him out.
Yeah.
And I understand why. Like I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want to be put in that position, you know?
I get two things, not a lot, but I'm sure you get it as well. And one is that, like, why aren't you more the TMZ of horror and do like the hot gossip? And I'm like, that couldn't interest me less. And I get, why don't you review books or have authors on that you don't like their work? And I'm like, well, that sounds horrible.
No, that's not what. Like, I've done that a little bit with movie stuff. I have my friend Mandy, she's just a friend of mine from grad school. She's not a horror writer, and I have her on occasionally to just talk movie stuff. And I feel like far enough removed from like the movie industry that that's where I can kind of like let my like
that's a safe space
catty side out a little bit. So like I feel a little bit more like willing to do it there, but I'm not gonna, I've stopped posting Goodreads reviews, because I feel like I'm part of this community.
Yep.
And I'm not here to like shit on people,
There's enough of that out there already.
Yeah, if I read something that I don't like, I'll talk in broad strokes about I've mentioned that I'm not always the biggest fan of extreme horror. There are some extreme horror books that I like, but it's not my favorite genre typically. So I'll talk about some of my issues in a broad, strokey sort of way. But I'm not going to name check specific authors whose work I don't like. Or things like that, because there's no need for that.
No.
I'm not here to call people out.
But that is why your podcast is what it is, because it's a great fun hang, but it serves a purpose because those authors really do benefit from being on your podcast. I feel
that's what I hope.
Yeah. Well, Scotty, I'll challenge that, because from an outsider's perspective, I feel like your podcast, same with like Talking Scared, same with Anna Dupree, with Anna Rose Reads, and She Wore Black, and Books in the Freezer. You all have a real, it is, I hate to keep using this word safe space, but it is. It's a safe space for an author to talk about themselves and their work, and it's positive and it's constructive, but it's also fun. There are lots of podcasts out there, but there are a few that are able to do all of those things and do it well and do it at the same time. And it's just every single episode is just an enjoyable listen from start to finish. There's no duds in there. And I think that's
I hope not. Try. Yeah.
It's invaluable. I really do appreciate what you do for the horror literature community, and I know the authors appreciate it. But my point is, and you're a humble person, but I do feel like your podcast is becoming one of those podcasts that authors seek out and truly want to be on because of what you do.
Yeah. And I mean that's the goal, and I don't have a huge listenership, but it's sort of steadily seems to be growing. And one thing I've noticed is that I think like the listenership that I have is, a lot of horror authors seem to be listening to it.
Yep.
And so that's definitely validating. Can I shout out one other podcast you were mentioning?
Shout out as many as you would like, please. This is what it's all about tonight.
There's one podcast in particular that I think people should check out. It's the We Bleed Orange and Black podcast. That's hosted by Jeff C. Carter. He's a good friend of mine. He's also based here in Albuquerque.
Look at this little enclave you have out
there. Yeah. But I think he does a really great job too, and he's also like very much got that kind of attitude of like he really wants to kind of to be a cheerleader for the genre and for other writers. So,
hey, look, and it's not like we're doing any disservice because there's so much incredible horror fiction out these days I talk about this, and the listeners are going to be like, "Oh, here he goes again," but it's true. During the 80s, there was this heyday. Like the 70s had that paperback boom, and then the same thing happened in the 80s where it was just so much horror. Like it
Yeah.
was just overwhelming, but it wasn't very diverse. And it was
Hmm.
a lot of white guys, middle aged white
Yeah.
guys writing horror. We're having that same moment as far as that boom now, and it's been happening for the past couple of years. But it's diverse voices.
Hmm.
There's no matter who you are, what you believe in, just whatever you want in life, there's something for you to find. There's a author out there that speaks to you. I think that's
Hmm.
fantastic. So it's a
Hmm.
great moment in horror right now.
Yeah. And I think, and I think that's a good thing to bring up. And, I've really hopefully have been trying to make an effort to have a pretty, like, cast a pretty wide net
You
and have
have. No, you have.
a diverse array. And I think, as always, like, I would like to be even more diverse with the uh, authors that I have on, and I'm always kind of looking for more, and always trying to reach out to people. And I think that's important, because I do think we're in this moment where, like you said, a lot of my favorite authors back in the day, there was a lot of white dudes,
Yeah.
but there were others. I think about, I read Tanana of Dew, back when I was in high school, and I thought she was fantastic. And so I'm really happy. I'm really excited to talk about her work with Tamika Thompson. And if people haven't read Tamika's work, she's fantastic.
I
So
haven't. So look at this. You're turning me on to new authors
yeah,
right here in real time. I love it.
yeah, yeah. She's got a new book coming out next year. So
All right. Do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions about what you prefer and what you gravitate toward? So, as far
sure.
as horror literature and horror film, what do you like to read and see?
Um, so I tend to gravitate towards a lot of cosmic horror, and towards a lot of folk horror, I think.
Nice.
But I do have, and even though I was saying, like, I tend not towards what we would in this day and age call extreme horror,
Mhm.
um, probably like modern extreme horror. Although I do want to qualify that by saying that there are some extreme horror authors that I do really love, or authors that kind of get put in that. Hold on, real quick.
Sure, of course.
He's got a weather alert blaring on my phone. So
What
okay.
is going on out there, Scotty?
Yeah, he had a huge thunderstorm here
Oh,
a few
okay.
minutes ago. So probably a flood warning. But um, what was I saying? Oh, like I said, I should qualify by saying, there are some specific authors that kind of get put in the extreme horror category that I do really love. Um, Historically, uh, I was really influenced by the splatterpunks back in the day. By David J. Scow, Poppy Z. Bright, obviously Clive Barker. I mean, Clive Barker's in the pantheon for me.
Absolutely.
So I feel like in my own work, I straddle a line sometimes, particularly in the longer fiction that I write, between sort of cosmic horror and kind of classic splatterpunk
Okay.
sometimes.
All right.
Um, Obviously Stephen King, particularly like old school Stephen King.
Yeah.
So that's those are kind of the big touchstones for me. But I really, I think, um, probably skew a lot towards cosmic horror.
Love that. Love that. Now, what about film? What do you gravitate towards? Same thing?
Largely, same thing. I got really, as a filmmaker, I kind of came out of film school wanting to be a horror filmmaker at the wrong time, because this was in the mid 2000s, and it was all torture porn and zombies.
Yeah.
And it was just like not what I was really wanting to do. Although I do love, the Romero zombie films, but it was just like too much, in the mid 2000s. It was just like that was all we were getting for a few
Get me
years.
those
So
kids from the CW. We're gonna
yeah,
remake something, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
So there was actually a period where I was really not writing a lot of horror as a filmmaker. I was doing a lot of like thriller, crime thriller,
All right.
suspense thriller type stuff. But then I feel like the genre kind of swung back around to me around probably around the time, things like the Babadook, It Follows, stuff like that. And then we have this like A24 wave
Yeah.
that has happened. And so a lot of that stuff is really kind of speaks to me.
I couldn't agree more that you picked out the perfect moment where there was kind of like a little bit of a seismic shift.
Mm-hmm.
It was really well made, I guess for lack of a better word, indie horror
Mm-hmm.
that influenced some of the mainstream horror and then kind of vice versa. And now we're at this like perfect cross section of, you've got major studios making films like Sinners or Weapons, and that
Weapons, Sinners, Weapon. I mean, like this year, there have been so many great horror
it's
movies that came out this year. But
and
then I also love so much like retro horror. I mean, I'm just looking at the posters. Seven Golden Vampire. I mean, like the classic Hammer stuff. I teach a international horror film class, and we just did the Hammer film um,
do you like
unit,
do
and
you love
like
the Hammer films?
I love all those Hammer films.
Oh, I'm getting you
I
back
mean,
on to talk Hammer.
there's yeah, they're so kind of dated, but also so fantastic. Like just the style, I mean, I feel like Guillermo del Toro wouldn't exist without Hammer.
Couldn't agree more. Maybe even
Yeah,
like Edgar Wright might not even be Edgar Wright without him.
absolutely. Yeah, probably not.
You know,
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
look. I hate to
I
put you on the spot, but I'm absolutely getting you back on, and we're going to talk some Hammer films.
yeah. I mean, I was trying to get I wanted, we ended up watching The Horror of Dracula because it's kind of the one you have to watch if you're talking Hammer films.
Fair.
But I really wanted to make them watch The Quartermass Experiment, but that's so hard to find,
It's so hard to find, but it's so good. And the fact that
Mhm.
Hammer started with that film, and it's great,
Yeah, it's so good.
it has no right to be as good as it is. It's
Mhm.
funny. I get into this, and not to go on a whole tangent about Hammer, but just quickly, I always get into this not argument, but kind of, I suppose, where I love the Brides of Dracula. Love the Brides of
Mhm.
Dracula. It's
Yeah.
like just sumptuous. The visuals are fantastic. I get such a kick out of the fact that if you ever wondered what happened to the Von Trapp kid that grew up to be a vampire, there he is in
Mhm.
the film,
Yeah.
And people push back on me because they're like, but it's only got one half the equation. It's only got Cushing and there's no Lee. And I'm like, I get it, but it's
Mhm.
just so good.
It's still good. Yeah. I actually talked about it on the podcast with my friend Aaron Campbell, who's a uh, comic book artist and writer, and that's like one of his big influences.
Just great. It's just
Yeah. No, and then I was right before we hopped on the podcast today. I was watching Fright Night, from the '80s. I mean, so all those '80s horror movies, and Near Dark is one of my favorite movies of all time. I actually just
top five.
I'm trying to sell a vampire novel right now, and Near Dark was a huge influence on that.
Oh, okay. All right.
So it's my range of horror tastes is pretty wide. I mean, favorite horror movie of all time, and this is going to be a cliche answer. This is not. I'm not, going super obscure here, but John Carpenter's The Thing.
Perfect.
I
Perfect.
mean, it's just to me, it's a perfect film.
It is. It
Yeah.
absolutely is. And this is interesting because you're a filmmaker. I feel like The Thing, Halloween, The Fog, I think he greatly benefited from that trifecta of Carpenter, Deborah Hill, and Dean Cundey. How like
Hmm.
they were just like they were on fire. And
Yeah.
I know that the Carpenter Cundey relationship only lasted so long, and same with
Hmm.
Deborah Hill, but we're lucky to have that period where
Yeah. Yeah, well, and then the script, because it wasn't Carpenter wrote the script. It was and I'm forgetting his name. It was I believe it was Burt Lancaster's son. It was Lancaster. Um, and I think Carpenter obviously had a lot of input in the script, but um, uh, all of those elements just came together, and obviously Rob Bottin with the special effects. It was just like everything came together on that movie, and it's so crazy to me that movie failed at the box office and almost destroyed Carpenter's career for a
fucking
while.
E.T.
Yeah, E.T.
the life out of all horror that year.
Yeah, it's wild.
So crazy. We just wanted nice aliens.
Yeah.
Oh my God. All right, Scotty, I've got to ask you, is there anything that is on the horizon? I know we're in October and the year is, I'm not rushing it, but the year's coming to a close. Is there anything, either literature or film or both, please, that you could tell us that's on your radar?
Let's see. Well, the movie that's probably coming next, the movies that I was most excited about this year have already come. So, it was
been a great year.
Yeah, it's been a great year. It was 28 Years Later, Weapons, Sinners, and The Long Walk. Those were the movies I was most anticipating. So probably the one that's up, and I loved all of them, by the way.
Yeah, same.
Even The Long Walk, which I think was divisive with King fans. I actually really liked the adaptation.
Same.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting way to take a nihilistic novel and approach it in a somewhat non-nihilistic way.
And it was gorgeously as well.
Yeah, it looked amazing.
Yeah.
Probably the movie that's coming up that I'm anticipating the most right now is probably Guillermo del Toro's
Frankenstein. Same.
Yeah.
I hate to jump on the bandwagon with you, but I have to.
That's the one at the moment.
That's going to be it. Yep.
Yeah.
It is going to complete what has been an incredible year. And then the horror fiction, you haven't started Michael Wehunt's The October film Haunt.
Mm-hmm.
I really do, just from our conversation tonight, I really do feel like, and your film background, this is going to speak to you. But there have just been, Nat Cassidy with When the Wolf Comes Home and Rachel Harrison with Play Nice. I mean, I could go on and on and on. There have just been so many great novels this year.
Yeah, no, there's been, as far as the books I've already read this year, I think Sam Rebeline's Galloway's Gospel is fantastic. I just read and just interviewed Rebecca Baum about The Brood.
I spoke to her last night. She's an incredible person.
Yeah,
and that novel is just unlike anything that's out there right now.
Yeah, and that's part of what we talked about. She comes from really sort of a non-horror background, and I think it actually makes the book one of the most interesting horror novels I've read in a long time.
Couldn't agree more.
It's way up there for one of my books of the year. One book I really enjoyed was Mike Bachhofen's Come Knocking. Thank
you for mentioning that. I have not read that yet.
It's really good. And we actually interviewed him on the Weirdest Thing podcast with Amelia.
All right.
Really nice guy. The books I'm probably anticipating right now actually I'm just thinking about what's upcoming. Actually are probably things that are coming out early next year. Rebecca Rowland's Imminence Front is really on my radar. And then Tamika Thompson's new novel, which I'm forgetting the name of. But that's going to be coming out in the spring. So those are way, way high up on my list.
I'll definitely put that on my radar. Look, you are kind of like the Rosetta Stone for me, because I'm like, yep, I got to read that. Yep, I got to read that. I'm stealing from Scotty. I'm going to reach out to that author immediately.
Yeah.
But I only steal from the best, so I hope you take it as a compliment.
Well, thank you.
Scotty, this has been fantastic. Everybody look below. you're going to see Scotty's Instagram, and you're going to see the link so that you can listen to Scotty on iTunes and Spotify. Each and every episode is just better than the next, and that's saying something because they're all great. Please also listen to The Weirdest Thing, and keep an eye out for your fiction. I kind of, I'm not letting this slide by. I'm loving that you're trying to get this vampire novel.
Yeah, it's in the whole clearing process right now. And then, and I got a whole bunch of short stories out there. You can find all that. Go to my website. It's just scottymilder.com.
It's right below, everybody.
There. So, and then, and my movie, Dead Billy, find that on Amazon.
It's right there on Amazon. I'm going to check it out. Scotty, promise me you'll come back. This was fantastic. I really,
this was really great.
Yeah, I want to talk more Hammer horror with you and horror in general. But honestly, if you ever want to promote anything, all you need to do is reach out, and this is going to happen immediately, okay?
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
You got it. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.